Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. It's time for another set of classics recommendations. This time, I got a comment on one of my videos that asked to present some classics with unusual formatting. A lot of people might not know that there is unusual formatting within a lot of classics, so I wanted to talk about some of those. I'll start kind of with simple but unusual formatting. Along the same lines, I have a couple that do something kind of similar. The first one is Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Yes, it is a classic, you might say, but it's a children's classic. I don't see how that's a contradiction. So in Winnie the Pooh, the very first book of Winnie the Pooh, we have this intentional formatting of Pooh climbing and climbing and climbing. The movie, the cartoon, did a really nice job of enhancing this and actually making the story meta enough that characters are like hanging off the letters and things like that. So it's not exactly the same in the book, but there is that indication that there's a kind of collaboration between the illustrations, the text, and the words themselves. So you have that with Winnie the Pooh. You have something pretty similar with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So check out this copy. I've done a whole video about this beautiful edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and really everything else Lewis Carroll ever wrote. Look at that. It's stunning. But anyway, in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, there are not only illustrations, if you go to an original sort of copy, but you also get these moments where the text does something very similar to what Winnie the Pooh was just doing. So let me find it. This is why I should tab things. That would be useful. So we have a couple different ways that the text is unusual here. You have here a song, and it becomes a sort of script for that song, which is, again, kind of strange. Then I'm looking for one more example of an unusual place. There it is. It's in The Caucus Race and A Long Tail. So the mouse starts speaking, and you can see right here on the page, it says this is her long tail, so it looks like a tail. The text gets really tiny, and we have form and content to the umpteenth degree. I've talked about form and content on this channel quite a bit, and I will continue to talk about how the style, the form should enhance the content, even when it's not as overt as something like that. But yeah, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland gets a little funky. All right, I have another one that is just an odd choice for the marriage of form and content. I've never seen anything quite like it. I don't think there are that many people that could pay this off. But this is understandably an award-winning work, and that is Mouse by Art Spiegelman. It is an autobiographical account of someone who is asking his father about his experiences being a Jew during the Holocaust in Europe, and it's told through a graphic novel style where the most people are mice. So it's incredibly dark and complex. It has that family element that doesn't shy away from the realities of what it is to live with someone who has an incredibly traumatic past with war and attempted genocide and these horrible things, but it's told in an almost cartoonish way. So I am just shocked that this worked at all, but it does. So Mouse. There's also another one is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. The majority of this is just, you know, a long novel telling the story of Captain Ahab and Queequeg, who was my favorite when I originally read this story, as they seek out Moby Dick, the almost mythical white whale. However, the reason that this makes it onto the list, there are actually a couple of reasons. Every once in a while, you reach a really strange chapter. So this chapter, for example, the Midnight Forecastle, I think is how you say that instead of forecastle, but I'm not 100%. I'm not a salty sailor. But you get, all of a sudden, it's a script, like it's a play or something. There's singing, there are stage directions, like this person starts dancing. It's odd. It's an odd choice. And then there are other chapters in here that are not quite so strangely formatted, which is what this video is really about. But they will stop the entire, all of the action to talk about cetology, so the kind of the genealogy of different types of whales, or the measurements of whale skeletons or things like that. So it reminds me a lot of Victor Hugo and how he creates this tapestry more than anything of a complete look at, you know, Paris and Les Miserables, or you know, the whaling industry in Moby Dick. So for those who didn't have photographs or things like that, they could fully immerse themselves and picture what was going on. But that still doesn't explain why we suddenly get a script here. So yeah, it's unusual. It's a lot of things being put together that don't always get put together, I guess. So yeah, Moby Dick. And then next is the Devil's Dictionary by Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce was an American writer. The work that I'm most familiar with by him is An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which is also just a really unusual short story that I like to teach because it's just a masterful use of foreshadowing. But the Devil's Dictionary is literally a satirical dictionary. It just has word entries with satirical definitions to go with those words, and it's a full-length book, the Devil's Dictionary. So if that very unusual style of book appeals to you, then check it out. For example, cabbage, the entry for cabbage is, quote, a familiar kitchen garden vegetable about as large and wise as a man's head. That's a tame entry. Some of them get pretty salty, but if you haven't heard of it, that is considered at least classic adjacent, and it is definitely one of the more unusually formatted books that I've ever heard of that makes it into that kind of classic list. And then last but not least, we have T.S. Eliot, which shouldn't surprise anybody, really. T.S. Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, in particular, makes it into this list. The Wasteland is so strangely formatted. We start off with an epigraph that is in four languages, one of which is English, and none of which are translated, so good luck with that. And then we get these different sections, and again, lots of different languages, lots of different allusions, lots of different styles. You'll be going from something that is blank verse to something that is free verse to something that sounds like lyrics to a section that is more like terza rima, which is an Italian form. By the time you get to the end, it is so fragmented that it finishes with fragments and a variety of languages. Let me show you here. So we get fragments, we get a variety of languages, and punctuation becomes an oddly optional thing. I mean, it is very, very odd. It comes with notes just for that purpose. There are lots of other books that certainly could have made it on this list. Finnegan's Wake is just an absolute crazy house. But for that reason, I have not personally dived into that work, which is why it did not officially make it onto this list. These are things that I am more familiar with. But what else would you add to the list of classics with unusual formatting? I can think of a lot more modern books that are playing with different forms, but that's not a new phenomenon. You know, The House of Leaves, Illumini, people have been doing things like this and experimenting with forms for a long time. So yeah, let me know what I missed. Put those ideas down in the comments, and I will see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe and like. I'll see you next time.